Hello and welcome to the Confusion Wrestling Podcast, the last bastion of independent wrestling. Just going to get a cheap plug out of the way before we sit down with our guest this day, I guess. Here we go. But yours truly will be sitting down with Professor Bear of A Bear's Thoughts, part of the Wrestling Society Network. Of course, you guys might remember Bear. Talked to him last year, well, a year and a half ago, I guess, closer to a year and a half ago on this here very show. He's doing Podcaster Appreciation Month, bringing on all sorts of wrestling podcasters onto his program over the month of January. And yours truly got the January 23rd, 8 p.m. Central Time slot. So be sure to check that out. We'll be streaming live on both the Wrestling Society Network Facebook page and their YouTube channel. And of course, like most streaming, if you don't catch it live, catch it on the replay. Live would be cool though, because I assume there's going to be chat involved or something of the like. But either way, support independent wrestling, support your independent wrestling podcasters, etc., etc., etc. That being said, the real point of the day, of course, of this podcast is bringing a spotlight to independent wrestling talent, and we are sitting down today with DooM Montgomery, game show host, owner, CEO of Doom Tech Enterprises. Had a good talk about like wrestling philosophy with him. There's things though like I wanted to talk about a lot more, just in general, but one, I try to cap these things out at close to an hour, and two, I did run my official question list past my attorneys, and they decided that there was some things involving crawl spaces that I was not allowed to legally bring up during the course of the interview. So we didn't get to cover everything I would have liked. But, I still think it was a darn good interview. Doom is super personable, and it was just nice just to be able to talk wrestling with, someone in the business, whether they're a game show host, possible serial killer, or, a guy who's trained in the mixed martial arts. So, that being said, thank you for sticking through this. Going to get through the plugs, and then we'll be back with DooM Montgomery. Hey, folks. The Confusion Wrestling Podcast has become a veritable hub of shopping and treats and all that sort of good stuff. Whether you need a sugar-free alternative to energy drinks in the form of Raise Energy, or maybe even, top-of-the-line ice makers, coffee machines, and other household appliances, all through my links section. All you got to do is wander down to the descriptor of this week's episode, check out the various links, click on them, and go shopping like you normally would. Heck, it's no difference. You just came in and just said Rob sent you. And that way, you can get the things you need, maybe even at a discount, and the podcast gets a kickback as well. So be sure to check out those links. Thank you very much for listening. Back to the show. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, Confusion Wrestling Podcast. With me, as I said at the top of the show, is the CEO of Doom Tech Enterprises, game show host, Wheel of Doom. He is DooM Montgomery. Doom, how are you doing this evening, sir?
Oh, I'm doing never better. How about yourself, Rob?
Outside of complaining about the weather, I don't have a whole lot to complain about. And actually, my weather's a lot milder than other chunks of this here Midwest area, so can't complain.
I woke up today at 6:30 or so and had to take my dog out. Just did not expect to be walking into a tundra, but here we are.
Yeah, we missed the snow in my chunk, but we still managed to have -5 degrees of wind chill. The wind has been pretty killer today, but we didn't have any of the white stuff, thank goodness.
Okay, that's a plus, but goodness. And I'm from North Carolina, this. I've been up here for 4 years. I'm still not used to it.
Low key, that was one of my favorite things. When I went to college way back in the day, was watching people who weren't from the Midwest come up. So we'd have kids from SoCal who would or Texas who had never even seen snow before, and I would just love to see it would hit 50 degrees and watching them acting like it was the tundra, or watching them experience snow for the first time. It was just magical.
Oh yeah. They hit that first time where it hits 40, and then they're like, oh man, it's a good thing it's not going to get any colder. And it's wait.
It's November. We haven't even touched winter yet.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk again in January when it's -14.
The first time I talked to one of a college coworker, the color went out of her face when it was 45. I'm wearing just a regular just jacket with that I didn't even button up. Like
Yeah.
I'm just doing the Midwest thing, like, oh, it's just a wee bit breezy here,
Yeah.
and she's got a winter jacket on, and yeah, she's just like, oh, it's so cold, and I'm like, it's November. We'll talk again after winter break and see what you think, and just the color drained out of her face. So, like,
Yeah. And then every Midwesterner I've discovered has retrograde amnesia when it comes to the winters, because like every winter, everyone I talk to, they're like, oh, "This is my last winter here. This is my last winter here." And then like summer hits, they're like, "Man, it's so beautiful here." And it's like, "Okay, I'll talk to y'all again next winter."
well, the way things are going, like that, we can have that conversation like the same week.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
Absolutely.
the problem. Like the weather this week alone has like it has varied like 10 degrees one
Yeah.
way or another, like each day. Like it would go up to 30, down to 20, back to 30, now at 40, and like we peaked at 50 yesterday,
Yeah.
and now like the high was like 25 in my neck of the woods, and
Yeah.
it's going to get worse.
Undoubtedly, it always gets worse.
It's I mean, we're due at least one more good snowstorm and one really good cold snap
Yep.
before March hits,
I'd
and
say
it's just
that's
a question. That's
I think
yeah.
that's fair. I think that's to be expected.
But anyway, I assume my listeners are not here for my expert weather weather
Hey,
analysis. No, note to people: Midwest winters aren't kind. They're not quite as bad as Northeast, but
yeah. And
uh,
meteorology department for Confusion Wrestling podcast is on the up and up. So
there we go. It's no cast, but anyway, hey, going to the wrestling front. Like
yeah,
usually, before I get sidetracked by the weather, I usually like starting off the party asking the always original, never before asked question, like, what got you into professional wrestling? What made you a fan of the sport?
yeah. So that's honestly like I mean I like to think that everything I say is interesting, but my journey into wrestling is kind of a unique one. Just because I watched it as a kid. Both my mother and father lived in Memphis for several years during the heyday of the Memphis Coliseum and like Rock and Roll Express, Jerry the King Lawler, all that. And so like I grew up in North Carolina watching WCW like every Monday. And was a veteran of the Monday Night Wars as a child, like trying to hit the outsider's edge, as I knew it, on kids in the at the roller rink and stuff, and then as I grew up, I kind of lost touch with it. You know, right around when like Randy Orton, when like the RKO was coming back, that was when I had like stopped watching it. And people would like be trying like hitting the RKO in high school, because you know I'm an old man now, and they'd be like, "Yeah, it's the RKO." I was like, "What the hell are you guys talking about? Like that's the Diamond Cutter." Like and like yes, I'm familiar that they are two separate moves now, but I'm 15 at the time. But I kind of fell off with it. I just and then years later in my early 20s, I started training MMA, and I started doing like some submission wrestling competitions and things like that. And the culture of at the time, like at least around my gym, was I mean it was out in the mountains of Appalachia, and it was all good old boys, and we were trying to hurt each other for fun. And everyone was injured all the time. Everyone was getting choked unconscious all the time. And I was like, I'd kind of like to maybe you know, I remember this other thing that people were doing that seemed like a lot more fun. And this was like at the genesis of international streaming when New Japan World came out. So I was like, how cool would it be if there was like actual, like good, solid submission wrestling and catch wrestling? And I'd been obsessed with catch wrestling for like 3 years. And then I learned about like Carl Gotch and stuff going over to Japan, and you know, watching like old Sakuraba videos and old you know Don Fry and Dan Severin and like all like the Pancrase stuff, and I became really infatuated with that sort of showmanship that was alongside like the classic like Don Fry Takayama, and I was like, okay, like I kind of want to do that. I don't really care, like no disrespect to anyone who's really into this, but like a buddy of mine sent me at the I remember the day because a friend of mine sent me a DVD instructional from it was Gordon Ryan, I believe, and they were like, dude, you watch this, you're going to be the best grappler in the world. And I was like, I tried to watch it. It was like watching paint dry. So I was like, man, couldn't we go back to like when I saw like, those two dudes just beating the shit out of each other in front of like a roaring crowd. And so then like it was pointed out to me that like if you want more of that showmanship angle, you should go watch New Japan. So around 2016, on a whim, I got a New Japan Pro Wrestling or New Japan World membership, and I started watching like old Masahiro Chono matches, and it was exactly what I wanted. Where like at the time, I didn't want to be a pro wrestler still. I just wanted something that was like a little bit more fun than going to like my local gymnasium to compete in like the North American Grappling Association and like eventually get my shoulder separated. Um, and so, but then I was like, I started getting more and more into it. And I was like, "Ah, I kind of want to watch Wrestle Kingdom." So like I watched Wrestle Kingdom 10 and then I was like, I kind of want to watch Wrestle Kingdom 11 now. So that, and then I just became obsessed with it. And from there, I decided I wanted to do it. Because I don't really like when it comes to like athleticism or anything, I don't really like watching something and not being able to do it. And so then I was fortunate enough at the time to have some very, very amenable people around me that would let me like try moves on them and stuff. And I was about 45 minutes outside of East Tennessee, in the like the Knoxville area where there's a lot of wrestling. And so I started training out there briefly, and then my then girlfriend, now wife, wanted to move back up to be closer to her family in Illinois, and I, unwittingly walked into one of the hubs of wrestling worldwide, and the world just opened up, and I started like it was like you could walk around and people would be wearing wrestling shirts, and you would see Colt Cabana on a billboard when you drove through, and different, and I was like, oh man. And so that's when like I really 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 started getting into it and was like, I can't do anything but this, like this is what I want to do. So the short version is I was really into it as a kid, lost touch with it, which I think is not super uncommon as 90s children, early 2000s children get older. And then once like streaming hit and I could watch like the quote unquote like strong style and more like hard hitting stuff, um, then it looped me right back in, and now I'm backfilling everything that I missed from like ages like 10 till 23 or so when I got back into it.
Have you gotten to watch? I think it's UWFI in Japan. It'd been like
Yes.
90. Yeah, because I that was something like I have not watched like full cards of it, but
Mhm.
I've seen matches here and there because they've had like a truly like a WTF like roster at various points of guys who come in and doing. I mean, it's ultimately pro wrestling, but it's
Mhm.
very much style. Like it's one of the better, I think, in terms of like presentation styled as like as MMA style. Except then you'd have like Big Van Vader coming in to see
Just
like
balling people.
uh, uh Kane.
Yeah.
Yeah, came in there for what, like 3 matches I think he had
Yeah.
in there, something like that. I have to
there,
check
there's a
all that.
there's a few people that sneak in there, and it's weird because like when I first started training, like that's all that I wanted to do. Like I just wanted to do, just let's go in there and let's beat the ever living hell out of each other. Now I've gotten a little bit more into like the hardcore death match side of things, but like it's such a incredible ability of those folks, especially like the UWFI guys and like the Pancrase guys and all that, their ability to take something which like is on the whole not very interesting for people outside of like the training world to watch. Like go try to watch like an actual Abu Dhabi Combat Club like jujitsu match or something. It's at least in my mind incredibly boring. Now you watch like a judo tournament or something, like those are pretty entertaining. But the ability of like the blood sport guys, of the pancrase, the UWF, like all those folks, and their ability to take uh, these micro movements and make them so like passionate and so meaningful. Like I respect it tremendously. That is a incredibly hard thing to do, and that's why I like watching those, is because like they'll take the most basic stuff but make it so extreme, and and they're legit the whole time, and it's very entertaining to watch.
I definitely think like yeah, it was really interesting, especially how they brought, especially like UWFI and to a lesser extent Craig brought like the pro wrestling
Yeah.
like oh again it was quote unquote worked, but even like the presentation was very much still a very pro wrestling thing.
Oh, dude,
Uh,
watch Suzuki. Like
oh
Suzuki's
yeah,
old man, like that dude is the Brando of like
yeah.
combat sports. Good night.
I love Murder
Yeah.
Grandpa, and just because he gives no fucks,
No.
especially in this day, especially at this age. Like, not that he ever really did, but even now, it's even less. Where now he's just like, I'm just gonna do wrestling stuff,
Yeah.
and if that means doing an MMA style bout,
Yeah.
great. But I will also dress up as, I can't remember. Just recently, he did like a cosplay.
Yeah.
He came out and wrestled in full
Yeah.
cosplay gear, wrestled another individual in cosplay gear, and like did the Gotch pile driver on a
Oh
table.
yeah. No, that was out for
Just
that was for Baka Gaijin, I think, or some sort of
yeah.
Baka Gaijin, which like shout out Baka Gaijin, if I am available at any point. But but yeah, absolutely. And he's a perfect example of like any time I sit there and I'm like, ah man, I'm in my 30s, like, oh, my knees are hurting or anything like that. I think of Suzuki. I'm like, all right, I'm getting back on the horse. Like he's still trucking and making no excuses about anything.
Still no knee pads,
Nothing.
like no pads. What, just his boots and his tights,
Nothing.
and
Yeah.
and and then going out and yeah, as I said, just doing just whatever's asked
Yeah.
of him, and he's a firm believer of just wrestling is wrestling, and it's what we're all going to make of it, and he's just going to have fun doing it because he can do that at that time.
Absolutely.
Um, before I kind of like further critique things, you brought Bloodsport briefly. Would that be something you'd be interested in doing if you got the invite to
Oh,
do?
100%. It's weird because like when I first started training, I mean, I was a lot lighter, and I did not understand like restraint. And so like I was locking in just full on guillotines on people like all the time. And it wrestling training is very, very physical. It's very rough on your body. Uh like shoot fighting or like catch wrestling is very rough on your body as well. But I didn't really understand. Like, there's just certain elements of pro wrestling that are kind of counterintuitive, of like making yourself bigger, not covering up, putting your chin out, and things like that. That are all more psychological. And so it took me a lot. I really had to like put some of my like catch wrestling stuff to bed and like just put it in the back of my mind, to start learning like pro wrestling, and to be able to like work those holds and things like that. So for a very long time, I completely squashed like any idea of like a more shoot style, of working. But now I'm a little more comfortable in melding those two. So I would be overjoyed to do something like that and really scratch that itch again. Because now at this point, it's just if I go back down south or something, like I'll go back to my old trainers and just get the ever living daylights beat out of me. But I don't get to work that muscle nearly as much as I'd like to. So yeah, I would love to. I mean, and a credit to all the people who like put themselves out there to do that.
I mean, to go along with the previous promotions, I love Bloodsport just because it's something so
Yeah.
different as well, especially when you layer it in with the sandwich that is usually the collective, where you have
Yes.
whatever's going on in Joey Janela's mind.
Yes.
Usually, at least one, a Japanese influenced card,
Yeah.
and plus like the myriad of others, or like the spectacle that is Effie's Big Gay
Yeah.
Brunch and anything else that you come by. Like it's very refreshing to see something like that kind of weasel its way into the collective
It
as
is,
well.
and the booking on that. I mean, Josh Barnett like is a genius sometimes because like I was upset that we didn't get the Mike O'Hearn match that was supposed to happen, but that they're all busy people. But every single time there's a new card that comes out for Bloodsport, it's always like just people you wouldn't expect. It's unique. It's not like indie wrestling has a problem with super cards a lot of time. I feel like where you see a lot of the same people on shows just all over the country. That's never the case with Bloodsport. Bloodsport, you're always like, oh, like you're excited to see those matches, and that's one of my favorite things about it.
Especially like the last few years. Like I tend not to like praise WWE
Mhm.
partnerships terribly often because, well, yeah, that could be a whole
Yeah.
podcast in and of itself. But like just the fact that WWE has allowed like some of their talent to come
Yes.
in and do Bloodsport, and some of the folks like you kind of think of like to a lesser, like Shayna Baszler was there before she got fired. Obviously, she's got a documented MMA history. William Regal's kid Charlie Dempsey came
Mhm.
in there, and then I was very curious to see how Natty Neidhart would do when they announced that one. Like that one, I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, that was an interesting one, and again, like it's all predicated on this idea of they're putting themselves out there and they're doing it to try something new, and I think that is overwhelmingly important in the world of wrestling. It's just like just do something new. Like don't get stagnant. Don't get a one track mind. Like it's something unique, and this form of storytelling has been uh, it has been marked by defining moments in quote unquote eras, and it's always done by folks who are just thinking outside of the box, doing something that ain't ever been seen before.
I agree, and to kind of rein it in and put the focus kind of, we'll call it locally. I That's something like I find very refreshing about wrestling is the folks who do go out there and do something different than everybody
Mhm.
else, whether it's character or move sets. But for me, like as much as I love pure wrestling, I am a big catch guy, but I am very much a
Mhm.
character like driven fan as well. So I love me my your
Yeah,
Danhausen's
totally.
and whatnot. And now to kind of like put it your way, like that's one of the things that kind of put you on my
Mhm.
radar, despite we'll call it I'm a recent convert, interested investor in Doomtech Enterprises, just because I mean, yes, there are there are people who kind of take this kind of the serial killer
Mhm.
thing, as kind of, I don't know, at least visually kind of rock the serial killer thing, or kind of
Totally.
like take like some of the mannerisms of people that they've seen, or like famously Vincent has channeled very much Charles Manson vibe out of his stuff and whatnot. But like like your promos and the Wheel of Doom, which unfortunately I'm too new and I've not seen the Wheel of Doom in action. I've just seen the wheel in the background. But
Yeah, for whatever reason, the the I was sort of contracted for the Wheel of Doom to be in one specific promotion for a minute. Now I'm sort of taking it on the road, so there will be more options in the very near future. So it's coming back. It's coming back. But yeah, I miss it. That was such an undertaking just to get that made. So I want to use it
all
more
right.
often.
Well, that's one of the things, like in your Instagram profile, it's a game
Yeah.
show host, and so I'm like, yeah, like I'm interested, actually, and then and then no, and then I've not seen the wheel spin or I've seen powder blue pants once, but that's the extent
Yeah.
of it. But but I find the presentation
Mhm.
fascinating, and I really enjoy the style of promos you do, especially when you're kind of putting over your
Mhm.
opponent and whatever dastardly, especially if you guys have wrestled before, whatever dastardly things they've done to you, and you appreciate or normally you
Yeah.
enjoy,
Yeah.
before you spin it away. Like what, like we talked a lot about the MMA inspired move set and lifestyle, but like what made that shift to the rain
Yeah.
slicker serial killer vibe that you're rocking
Yeah.
now?
So honestly, like part of it was I I got frustrated when I first started that um I didn't want to lack self-awareness with what I was doing and why people were here. I initially was gonna cut, and I was gonna be the shoot guy. I was gonna be the catch wrestler, and I had my I had my old like team coat from like my team back down south at the Mountain Division Jiu Jitsu, and I was just like I was always gonna be that guy. But then there's this whole world out there of actual fun, and we're lucky enough to be part of something that it lets you be whoever you want to be, whether freaks, misfits, whatever. They're all accepted under this umbrella of pro wrestling. So I wanted to I wanted to be more of myself, and I wanted to be more like actually entertaining. And I you know, in my training class had people that were that had pushed me in that direction a little bit, where they were like, "Hey, like, have you ever thought about like an American Psycho type thing?" And I've always had an interest in true crime, so I thought like, okay, I could do the serial killer thing, because like that is an element of my personality, but I also didn't want to be uh, I didn't want to be, if I was gonna work that angle, if I was gonna have that idea, then the person that are doing these horrible things, they're doing it because they're enjoying it. It makes them happy. So and that in turn makes me happy. So the Doom kind of came around with this idea of like this utter chaos and the abundant mayhem, like that's fun and exciting. And so I wanted to kind of be more in my sense of self of like, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to smile at people, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to hopefully have them have fun too. And if they're not on board with me, they will at least be unsettled by me. And either way, the job is being done. And I wanted it to be so far outside of your normal day to day, that there's that it's going to be memorable. You're not going to see uh, another character like that on the card. Ideally, I didn't want to be. There's people who can do this great, by the way. Like, this is not a criticism, uh, but I didn't want to be another person in spandex, with shoulder length greasy hair, coming out to some like hardcore or heavy metal. I wanted to do something that was entirely unique, and I thought of all the things that I like, that are combative, that are violent, and that are mischievous, and I decided to just go full throttle down that road. And I want to wrestle till I'm 50. I want to wrestle till I'm 60. So I really emphasize character and just having fun with it, because I think that protects me. I think it protects the business, and it's also just like, I'm in my home with my pets and my wife, like I have a normal day to day, but it is so wonderful to have like just this amplified version of yourself. And I just decided to indulge that as and take it as far as I can. And it is a and I've kind of just been led on the nose by that idea of like just let's just how far can we go with this?
I mean, I think it's interesting because I said like it has the serial killer vibe, but like there's just enough tongue in cheek in it,
Yes.
just because your character is blatantly having
Yeah.
fun, like kind of like whatever. Like, yeah, he gets angry if something bad happens to him,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, like he mostly respects that. He just wishes you would go about it a different way, or
Yeah.
don't attack from behind. Come at me at my
Yeah.
face. Then staple $13 bills to my head
Exactly.
or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't want to like I didn't want it to be grounded in like genuine trauma. Like there is enough like injustice and horrible things that happen in the world that I didn't want, if people go to a wrestling show, I want them to forget about the outside world. I want them to be in a better place than outside those doors. So like I didn't want to like evoke real deal mass murderers with, I wanted to evoke like myself, and I wanted to evoke more so the emotions and like a larger than life type vibe, if you will, than like this like sinister brooding, because that's just I personally can't convey that. It's just not who I am at heart.
I think it's gotten the crowd behind you. I know this match is a couple years old at this point, but uh, I forced people to watch before coming on here, like right after work, your match with Colt
Mhm.
Cabana, and despite being in Chicago, like like the crowd was going more for you than they were Chicago's own.
Okay.
And like maybe I misheard it, and they were saying boom instead of doom, but I don't know. I thought it sounded since they're just going with the
Yeah.
singular word, it sounded like doom to
Yeah,
me.
so that was wild. And again, this is not at all a commentary on what was happening. This is just a statement of fact that that match, I was in Atlanta at the time, and I got a call from the CSW booker, and he was like, "Yeah, like we've got you with Colt." And so talking a bunch of junk and getting ready for the fight and all that. And then yeah, like this the issue with the lawsuit drops. Like in the meantime between when the match is announced and or when I'm told about the match and when the match is taking place. So, yeah, there was the crowd seemed to be uh, very shockingly supportive of me, and I'm deeply indebted to them for that. I greatly appreciate it. But yeah, that was wild because like I had some family in the audience, and I had sort of prepped them. I was like, hey, I'm gonna come out there, and like your people are gonna say some they're gonna be talking some junk, and like this guy's like he's a Chicago native, and Chicago loves him. And then like after the show, they were like, I don't know what you were talking about. Like,
Yeah, no, it's just like really surprising, especially just because again, especially Chicago style wrestling with Chicago's very own, as you pointed out, near the start of our talk, that he has a
yeah, yeah,
billboard. He legit has a billboard because he's the face of pro
yeah,
wrestling tees, and or 1 hour tees,
yeah,
etc. They're the
yeah.
same
There's
company, but still, like he's got a billboard, and we got the Doom chance coming over. But I think it's just kind of a testament to kind of like how fun the character could be. Because I also something else that standed out is just going through the old
mhm.
social media, because that's why I call
Hey,
research is just watching
yeah,
wrestling on my phone.
it works.
uh, but like watching like your dynamic with
Yeah.
Axel Rico, friend of the show by the way, just to, like again, like you're kind of rock the serial killer thing, but like there is just so much like weird
Yeah.
goofy stuff going on with like preparing
Oh, yeah.
Rico for the challenges that lie ahead. And I mean, I'm just all right for the time being, the groin kicking for fun. is etched in
Oh
my
man,
head. Like,
that was wild because I mean Rico is a dear friend of mine, and I would tag with him any day of the week. But yeah, we were out at another show, and we were cutting that promo, and we're cutting it in like a parking lot. And yeah, like that was wild. There was a lot of people like just inquiring as to what was going on there.
that's the beauty of professional wrestling is like the world's a
Yes.
stage, and unfortunately, we don't always get permits, or we just do it guerrilla style, and meanwhile, people are
Oh
wandering
yeah.
around, just like,
Yep.
okay, cool, I guess maybe we'll stop and watch guys kick
Hey,
each
yeah,
other,
it's gotten
or
people in the
whatever's
door
going on.
before. I'm just saying it, and I have no bearing to give advice in the slightest, but cut yourself a public promo sometime if you're looking to get notoriety. It does help.
I mean, this one's preaching to the choir because Lord knows I have hidden in the corner at Dreamwave
Mhm.
shows and have cut a promo. I've actually been in the um, Satanic Temple in front of Baphomet and kind of
Hey,
pantomime promo, but I dubbed that in later because it's a
yeah.
legit museum. So I didn't want to be like, let me tell you something,
Hey,
brother,
but
in this
it's
quiet, echoey building. That's a matter of respect. I will pantomime, but I'm not going to talk.
yeah.
But
I mean, it
still, no, that's the point, though.
yeah, again, all the world's a stage, and like we're fortunate enough to be in a position where you know, you have access to market yourself any anytime, any place, anywhere you want. And I think that was such like a big shift in my mind of like when I was starting, and like I'm still rather new of like marketing yourself as an entity is such a unique thing. Like you're in control of you know how you are perceived and how many times in the mind of people you are. And like that it's such a unique thing to be in control of, and it's very hard for me to wrap my head around even to this day as much as I try to.
Oh, I think like how weird it is, because I see this on like social media about like the wrestlers of like I'm going to put my real opinions on here because Tom Cruise isn't whichever movie character of the
Yeah,
week he
yeah,
is. Matt Damon is not Jason Bourne like
yeah,
24/7, but I'm like also like your entire social media is branded with your
yeah,
branded name and image. Like if I'm looking at Matt Damon's social media, it's going to say Matt Damon on
yeah,
it, not insert famous wrestler
yeah,
name
yeah,
here. And so like wrestlers are just in that unique position where like kind of like everything they do in a public fashion, at least until you transcend the business entirely, looking at you Rock or Dave Batista, like everything you do is ultimately like tied to your brand, and like you got to tie it into like however like marketing, or you want to kind of shape that public perception of yourself through
yeah.
that lens of wrestling.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And you know, I personally like I don't want there to be a Wyatt Montgomery presence online. Doom is far more interesting. And so like you know, I want that to be inundated with Doom related entertainment far more so than you know, hey, here's what I had for breakfast this morning. Like that's why I love wrestling. It's just it takes everything in life and just makes it cool. Yeah,
Makes it bigger, makes it better, better. Hollywood glitz, depending on what company or what wrestler or promoter you're working
yeah,
for at any given moment. Um,
yeah,
but to shift the gears on to kind of go along with this,
yeah.
the character evolution, and then kind of like the dichotomy from your background with the MMA again. What made you say like, I want to go hardcore or dabble in the
Yeah,
deathmatch
so
stuff?
that pretty much came from I really disliked deathmatch for a while because like when I first started like putting myself on Instagram and like putting matches out there and stuff, um most of at least my algorithm was controlled by like deathmatch Instagram people, where it's just like if you wanted to see wrestling, all like I would turn on my phone, it would just be like light tubes, light tubes, light tubes, light tubes constantly, and I was just like, yeah, this isn't really my scene. And again, put it to bed for probably about 2 years or so. But as I've gotten further down the road, um, I remember seeing like the big catalyst for me was I can't remember what year it was, but it is Jun Kasai versus Ryuji Ito for Big Japan. I want to say it's in like 2008 or 9. It's a razor board match, and they just go absolutely hog wild, and they are working every second of that match. And they had like both of them just come out of that looking like the toughest SOBs in Japan. And I remember it sort of clicking in my mind where it's like these gimmicks and these weapons, when used to enhance the talents that you've trained, can really elevate a match, and it can get people that wouldn't normally watch wrestling involved because they are absolutely certain that, in spite of the fact that the biggest misconception in wrestling is that there's parts of it that don't hurt, all of it hurts. But there's certain things that people can't identify with. They can't identify with what it feels like to take a body slam. But everyone can pretty much know that getting hit with a chair hurts or a razor cuts. There is an immediate human visceral reaction to those things, and that's how I felt. And I realized that I was pushing away from it because it was kind of a subconscious reaction of recoiling, and I became sort of interested in that and wanted to learn more about it. And I was fortunate enough to have, I early on in my wrestling career, one of my first matches was with the Ice Pick, Vic Capri. And, I remember watching some of his more like death matchy stuff and talking to him about it. And I became more interested in it. And I think I think it's a very interesting counterculture. I think it can be a double-edged sword of, there can be an over-reliance on self-mutilation as opposed to an enhancement of an already good match. Um, but on a actual, like emotional level, I think increasing the spectacle and the danger of something is an inherently beautiful thing. And if, you know, you can do something that lets everyone in the room know like, oh, like this is legit. Like there are genuine stakes on the line here. This has gone from a a match where someone's trying to win to like we are watching something where someone could get like people's bodies and souls are on the line. Like I like that drama. I like being a part of that, and I like feeling powerful uh, when you have overcome insurmountable things, cinder blocks, light tubes, all the like walking out from that, like you've just been through a war, is a redemptive feeling. And I got a little taste of that, and then I wanted more of it, and have consistently sort of gone down that path. I still love my traditional wrestling matches, do them all the time. But given the opportunity, there's my deathmatch Mount Rushmore that I would always like that I'd like to get to at some point in my career, and I've been pursuing that because there is a power in that visceral reaction that people have with deathmatch, and I think it should be explored so long as it's respected and not exploited.
And I agree. And I think it adds stakes to a lot of things, and you touched on that, but especially if we're like looking in kind of like the feud aspect of it, like you know, it's kind of a furthering of kind of like what we've used in the
Yeah,
past wrestling wise to kind of end feuds, whether it's been a cage match, Texas bull rope match, variations of dog collars and like whatnot. Like I think this adds to it, and like to go against like some of what the detractors of deathmatch wrestling knows. Like there are a lot of wrestlers that we would consider like very good wrestlers who like we don't think about as deathmatch guys who have done like the deathmatch stuff to kind of blow
yeah,
off. I look at Raven for an example. Like, yeah, he's a hardcore guy, but it's not. But he is totally dabbled in the deathmatch world. He just was like, okay, well, I don't need to
no,
take 1,000 light tubes. We can build up to one good light tube spot, and that can lead
exactly.
into the next big creative thing. You can be creative with it and use it to kind of build the drama without just like not to put it down anyway. Because I do love watching myself like a 200 light tube match, but you don't have to just stand there and just beat each other over the head with light tubes
No,
for
no,
5 minutes
there is
either.
there's a clear line, and the line to me is when you've got, and yet again, just speaking to personal taste, this has nothing to do with anyone involved. Um, it is not to my taste seeing two people stand face to face, cracking each other, cracking each other, cracking each other, cracking each other, and just waiting for the next hit to come. That turns into an endurance test. And if you like that, like if that's what you're looking for, go for it. More power to you. I like to personally you use weapons as a method of victory and as a method of self exploration. And so, yeah, I think it's not the number if we're speaking about light tubes or doors or barbed wire boards or whatever. It's how you use them because you're going to have diminishing returns. There's you have to respect those gimmicks and know full well that like the shock that they're going to cause both to you and the crowd, like that has to be respected, and that has to be understood that that shock is gonna reduce the more you use it. So like you got to make them count. Um, and that's why like I love those old Big Japan matches, and I'd love to do one where they've got the light tubes all strapped to the ropes, and they're they'll try to Irish whip someone into it, and then they'll stop real quick, and then the other guy will try to do it, and then like eventually finally one guy will stop, but the other person catches him, drop kicks him into it, there's a giant explosion. Like that's the stuff I live for, like that sort of storytelling where it's like will they, won't they, like oh it finally happened, like that's where I think like deathmatch shines, in that story, more so than in like, oh yeah, this is that one where he gets an artery cut or something like that. It's far more important to have that build up and blow off than it is to just like how many scars are you gonna get today. And
And I say this as a big fan, so it'd be hypocritical for me to not to acknowledge my fandom for it. But like that's the thing. It's kind of like I look at in terms of like over like the whole. I don't know if we want to call it a character arc or a story arc or whatever. But I look at like your some of like the deathmatch and hardcore stuff, especially if guys do it regularly. Like if you can survive this, insert whatever crazy way you got
yeah,
put down to lose your match. It took a barbed wire. It took a double stomp through a barbed wire board onto a
yeah,
flaming pit or whatever. I'm just going crazy with that example, but like you know, and then you have to wrestle a regular match like I don't know next week or that doesn't like how am I supposed to believe that like, a DDT is gonna put you out if I just like watched you like get curb
yeah.
stomped into a
Well,
cinder block like with no emotional stakes to it like
exactly.
you did a death match for fun. Like I get it. Like maybe if it was like a kind of a feud, that's the end to the feud. Like oh, you hate each other so much, you were hyped up. Blah. But like if this was just a Tuesday, death match, how am I supposed to believe it? You a DDT or Uranagi or insert
Yeah.
regular finisher is done because there's a handful of guys I can get on tirades about that are like on national companies right now that are doing stuff like that, and I'm like,
Yeah, that's such a tricky one because like yeah, like it has seemed to be hard for a lot of guys who have done almost exclusively deathmatch for a number of years to get back into the traditional wrestling sphere for that exact purpose. I mean, like your body's scarred up, like you look tough as nails, and then everyone knows what your like main come up was. And I think at that point, yeah, like your character is what's going to like you've got to kind of make the personal professional a little bit and bring your character out in that and be like, yeah, like uh and the other person too, like it's up to them to make their move so devastating that it could be more devastating than going into a flaming pit or something like that. Like, but it is very hard, and it's very hard to do uh well. I'm trying to think of people who have done it well. I mean, I think like, it's a common one, but just because like uh, they were in my feed earlier, someone like Cardona, um, where like they've done death matches but they also can just sell stuff like it's going out of style. Far like you know far more than I can even perceive. Um, like it can be done, but yeah, it's hard and it's overlooked. It's overlooked, like the psychology of the audience on like deathmatch, not deathmatch. Uh, it's and I think that's why there's such a polarity between there's like deathmatch promotions and then there's promotions that would never dream of having a deathmatch. And my goal specifically is to bridge that gap because I'm that's one of my biggest frustrations in wrestling is seeing that like there's promotions that they will never book a bloody match. They'll never book a death match, and they have like some sort of moral obligation to avoid it. And then there's other promotions that it's like, no, like we got to do 1,000 light tubes now because we did 700 last month, and how are we going to build it up? Like for the survival of both groups of wrestling, they have to merge because they'll implode otherwise, or they'll at least just have the same fan groups at every shows every month, and there's not going to be any growth. Like there has to be some variety.
And I
Absolutely.
think it can be done if someone's willing to take the kind of the time to do stuff. Because again, I'm thinking of it
Yeah.
as like a feud ender. Like this, like they've wrestled regular matches. They've done they've gone slightly hardcore with
Yeah.
no DQ bouts. Like the cage for whatever reason didn't contain him or didn't finish the dealio. Like the only way we're going to finish
Yeah.
this is with barbed wire or something of the like. And like it's happened. Like I will throw. Well, now he's known as WWE superstar Seth Rollins, but like Seth Rollins has
Yeah.
done no rope
Go
barbed
watch.
wire.
Go watch CZW. Go watch CZW like, early 2000s. It's shocking how many people you see like today that were just doing wild stuff. Eddie Kingston comes to mind.
Yeah,
Like,
and he didn't do it often, but like when it counted, he came in because but
yeah,
like I use Seth Rollins as an example, but like he was feuding with former tag
yeah,
team partner Merrick Brave, the implosion of the Black and the Brave, and in I
yeah.
believe it was AAW, they finally come down to no rope barbed wire, and those are two guys that like you don't think that you don't think of those guys as hardcore, especially now with Seth Rollins being in the
Yeah.
corporatized world of WWE. Like you don't think of him like outside of his classic, the iconic chair swing to break up the Shield, but you don't think of him going terribly hardcore, and let alone like
Mhm.
playing with barbed wire. And so I think it shows that like it can be done. You just gotta, I mean,
Yeah.
to bridge that gap, as you put it, use it effectively in your storytelling. And I mean, for better or for worse, I think a lot of promotions aren't necessarily looking for that kind of long-term storytelling, whether it's the nature of the business as a whole, symptom is the business of the whole, or if it's just they're looking for like we live
Mhm.
in this viral age, and so we kind of want to get it done and over with to get those clicks. But
It absolutely is, and I mean that is I will state it now, like that is my stated purpose in wrestling, is to just bring some variety to things, because there's you don't want to get into a position where it's all the same stuff. Add some spice to it where you can, and that's I think wrestling in its heyday was the result of that, where you just saw some of the weirdest, craziest stuff you've ever seen, and no one had seen it before. It's important to have that kind of mindset of just, what is someone who's gonna be walking down the street, never had a thought in their mind about wrestling. If they saw, they would be a convert. And sometimes that's a little bit of bloody craziness. Sometimes it's a hair versus hair match. Like, I don't know. Like it just depends.
as I said, like I have at least like two different like events I would show people to be like, okay, this
Yeah.
is wrestling. Like let's go along with it. Or I guess I could say three because I had to
Mhm.
reconvert the wife into the wrestling fandom. But I really played into niche to get her in, because she, like in her case, I'm like based on her interests, I'm like
Yeah.
Chikara. She would enjoy Chikara because like she was, like kind of not heavily into comic books, but she liked
Mhm.
like some like sci-fi esque stuff, and like she liked things with she liked having like a good
Yeah.
coherent story to it, and while having like these interesting characters. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm Chikara, let's do
Mhm.
that. And that like that got her into it. But like I also have like, oh, someone just wants like this batch of athletic insanity. Here's I have I think it's Three Men is Three is the
Oh yeah.
specific
Oh,
show with
oh
Pro
yeah.
Wrestling
Oh
Gorilla.
yeah.
Like it's a crazy show featuring what is now like the who's who of like the wrestling scene. 5 years, I think it's 5 years before like the advent
Yeah.
of AEW. And then just for people who are just batshit insane, if I recommend this to you, uh, um, Sensory
Okay.
Overload Lucha Libre did one show in like I want to say it was like Maine or Rhode Island, and it is
It's
just
always Maine or Rhode Island when it.
and it is some of the most insane, like they were doing some of the stuff that like Hood Slam is now doing, or now
Mhm.
with the Slamtown reboot. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what they were doing. Well, also like around 2010ish, like the show itself was like self-contained in the town of Luchaville, and like so
Okay.
like all the like characters were like some variation of like the citizenry. Like the top heel was like the mayor of the town. There was like an evil school principal that promised Piki Sanchez his high school diploma if he took out this some other guy. I think it's Len Oddity, who the
Mhm.
principal hated. And like the main event was like for the last Twinkies in the world, because this was during when like Hostess was shutting down Twinkies.
Oh yeah, that I remember that now. Or the Twinkie thing.
Yeah, and so the main event was for the last Twinkies in the world,
Nice.
and it was Fire Ant versus Hollow Wicked. So like they were gonna have like this fast paced lucha match for the last Twinkies in the world, and like there's so that show had like so much WTF. I can't imagine the amount of cocaine that had to be ingested for that show to exist. And
Fantastic.
the owner promoter is aware of my opinion because I covered it once, and he's just like, hey, he like showed up in the comment section, was like, hey, I'm McTavish, who is one of the commentators. I actually wrote this monstrosity. Like,
Nice.
yeah,
Fantastic.
don't let my like quasi negative verbiage detract you.
Oh no,
I thoroughly enjoy this show, sir.
yeah,
But
I'm hopping on YouTube after we
yeah,
we settle up here.
yeah, I can say I think it's Smart Mark Video has like the entire thingy of it, and yeah, it's crazy go nuts. But yeah, wrestling is great. Wrestling is whatever we're going to make of it. I think that's the
Absolutely.
the moral of the story here. Whether we want to have straight catch MMA stylings, or if we want to go in the death matches, or anywhere in between.
Yeah. It can be all. It can be all of those things, and it can be all of those things in a single match if you structure it correctly.
That it can. So we've been talking for a bit of time, and to be respectful for the rest of your evening. We'll try to wind things down here.
Yeah.
Where can we find you in the upcoming weeks? And give a plug to whether it's social media or any other things you need to plug before we
Yeah.
wander out the door.
So, if you're going to see one wrestling show this month, I would highly, emphatically recommend Snake Farm Wrestling this Saturday at the DIY Punk venue, Not in Chicago. It is a rather underground show that is DM for address only. It is at a punk DIY venue. I am partially in charge of for structuring the show, so you can. It's me and my business partner. You can come see us. If it's great, you can share joyous accolades about it. If it's terrible, you can post on Instagram about it. But I promise you, it will be one of the most unforgettable nights of the year. And so that's Snake Farm Wrestling at the DIY Punk venue, not in sort of the in Chicago City. I will be there. I will be in a, speaking of, very violent and fast-paced match with Maurice, who has been talking junk all week about it. So we're going to tune each other up, and we're pulling out all the stops, all the weapons, everything you could want to see, plus tons of other good matches and a musical guest. So that's this Saturday, Snake Farm Wrestling. Next Friday, I will be at Ultimate Combat Gauntlet in Bedford Park. And then you can see me in February. If you're in Wisconsin, I'll be in Green Bay with Hybrid Wrestling Entertainment, back at UCG. And then, if you want to see me at a promotion, shoot them a message and say you got to have DooM Montgomery, because I am trying to expand. I love doing this, want to do it more, always have a good time doing it. You can see me at CSW, not depending on the month, but that's my home promotion. I'm always going to try to make it when I can. But yeah, definitely check out Snake Farm, check out Ultimate Combat Gauntlet, check out Hybrid Wrestling, Proving Grounds Pro Wrestling. I'm featured there very regularly. And then as far as socials go, Instagram, and I always forget my own name on this, but Instagram at DooM Montgomery. And then I do have a Facebook under the same name as well. I don't check it nearly as often as I should, but holler at me anytime. And I will be around. So.
Brilliant. Well, on that note, we'll go ahead and turn you loose. Thank you for coming on and just sharing your thoughts on. I mean, we've covered a wide bit of ground tonight.
Yeah.
Whether it's whether pure wrestling, deathmatch wrestling, a little bit of everything.
Yeah. It was very fun. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
The Confusion Wrestling Podcast is a weekly podcast that is written and performed by Rob Kammer and hosted by Spotify for podcasters. The background music for this section is Ruined by Day, performed by Alan Schroeder. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to help support, please like, subscribe, and tell your friends, family, and enemies. Leaving a review is helpful as well, because word-of-mouth advertisement is very important for us small podcasts. My social media links can be found in the description, but Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky are at The Nova of Cass. That's TheNovaOfCass, and Facebook is MLW Confusion, all one word. If you'd like to support monetarily and help upgrade my equipment, please check out my virtual tip jar at ko-fi.com/Casanova, or if you prefer more bang for your buck, go to patreon.com/Casanova, that's CASSONOVA, where for as little as $2, backers get access to the podcast early and without those pesky ads, plus other exclusive content. So join the crew that is headed up by Keith Wynn, Alan Schroeder, Chris Zach, and Elenia, and check it out. You can also find t-shirts, coffee mugs, and other merch at the Confusion Podcast store on Teespring. Also, be sure to check out the affiliate links in the description below. For business inquiries such as ads, sponsorships, and etc., please email rzkamer, Kamerer, at comcast.net. Thank you all for listening.